Premiering at Sundance, Bedlam is a documentary that explores the crisis of mental health care in America. And one of its producers, Peter Miller, joins us on the Daily Report now. Peter, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I'm very excited to talk to you about this. This is not a topic that we hear too often at the national level, big conversation about this. And so documentaries like yours are certainly helpful. I want to start off with a question about the filming and creation of the documentary, because I was very interested in the fact that the team apparently captured footage at an LA area institution for literally years. And I'm curious what that sort of extended access, how that might have changed your like what you were able to discover about the stories that you're profiling.
Well, the crisis in care of the severely mentally ill is a absolutely important story, and one which people rarely hear. Fortunately, this project was spearheaded by a filmmaker who was also a psychiatrist, Ken Rosenberg, who through great persuasive powers and persistence was able to get access to the USC Los Angeles County Medical Center and film for 5 years in the emergency room, in the busiest psych emergency room in the country, where we meet people who are in crisis and then follow them for years and years, seeing what it is like to be mentally ill in America today.
Could you tell us, give us an idea of some of the people that you've profiled, what sorts of different stories you focused on in this documentary?
Well, one thing to understand is that our mental health system is really in a state of disarray, and the film is called Bedlam for good reason. Our biggest psychiatric care facilities in the country are our three biggest jails, LA Twin Towers and Rikers Island in New York and Chicago's Cook County Jail. There are the 500,000 people who used to live in asylums, which were terrible places, but still provided some kind of care. There's no longer that system. It's all been broken down. And the people who are in crisis often, if they don't go to jail, they go to the emergency room. And in the emergency room, we were able to find a handful of people who were generous to let us into their lives and follow them home. One of whom, a gentleman named Monty, a beautiful, gentle person, but with severe mental illness, we meet and we follow him as his family takes care of him. His sister is really the rock and his family takes care of him and supports him. Couple of years into filming, coming out of her work of supporting her brother, his sister Patrice Cullors founds Black Lives Matter, which comes out of her work supporting a person with serious mental illness who is not getting the kind of care that he should be getting in our broken healthcare system.
That is actually really amazing. So you started to get into this in your answer. You talked about some of the institutional change historically in the sorts of facilities these people might end up in, where previously you had these more long-term care facilities. Now some might end up in prison. And in some of the interviews about the documentary, the team talked about how now prisons and jails are sort of a big part of this system. Can you talk a little bit about some of the effects of that?
Well, the worst place to get care if you're mentally ill is on the street, if you're homeless or in jail or prison. And yet, by default, our psychiatric care facilities of first resort tend to be our prisons. We've got in a large disproportionate share of people who are in jails and in prisons are suffering with severe mental illness. And for some people, that's the only place where they can get care, which is crazy.
So I know that documentaries like Bedlam are one way that some of the stigma around mental illness and mental health care can start to be broken down. I'm curious that as you've been doing research into the history of this, has there been much change in American individually and sort of nationally, our willingness to look at this sort of problem, to see these people as individuals that are deserving of help? Has there been much change over the past few decades?
Well, I think that's probably, you've really hit on what the critical thing to create a movement to make change is for people to step out of the shadows and say the stigma and the shame surrounding mental illness is a problem and it's holding us back. Other diseases, HIV, breast cancer, other terrible diseases, people have managed to shake off the stigma and say this is a disease that requires national attention. This is a crisis that requires care. And that's a huge number of Americans. There's 15 million American families that have serious mental illness in their family. If we don't step up and say we are an undaunted, unashamed community, we're never going to be able to create the kind of movement that will insist on the change that we need to make this system what it should be.
And it certainly seems like it is overdue to have such a lingering sort of like system of silence about something that affects so many families. Hopefully Bedlam will be successful in helping to open up the conversation a little bit. Peter Miller, producer for Bedlam, thank you for joining us. Certainly looking forward to the documentary.
It's a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you very much for watching this clip from The Damage Report. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell on YouTube to get notifications of our new videos. And of course, you can catch the full Damage Report live every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on TYT Network on YouTube TV.